Welcome to the Leafy podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Glagoric and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Legal. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Tammy, the podcast manager, and today hosting, we have the COO of Leafy Legal Services, Jennifer. She has an amazing guest with us today, so I will go ahead and hand it over to her.
Okay, so today's guest is pretty fancy. He started out with his wife as a realtor about 20 years ago, and he did investing, I believe, in a duplex, and he'll tell us all about this story. He became the Real Estate Rookie of the Year, then won Best in State. This is Salt Lake, so this is in Utah. And then he went on to do really well, but he started noticing the investors were making a lot more money. They had more work-life balance in their lives, so he started doing fix and flipping, and he became very successful doing that. So successful that he created his own company, dohardmoney.com. And the goal of that is to offer one-of-a-kind, 100% financing, no money down with good credit, and flipping experience not required, because he teaches you how to do it. So, of course, we all want to learn a lot more. Oh, and he's also written all these books, and they're fabulous, and we'll talk about them, and they're on Amazon. You can go to Barnes & Noble. Basically, anywhere books are sold, you're going to find a book by Ryan Wright, that's W-R-I-G-H-T, of dohardmoney.com. Ryan, I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Wow, thanks for having me. That's quite the intro. I love it.
Well, you're pretty impressive.
Oh, thanks. You're kind.
So, okay, so we started talking. He's so cool. I jumped the gun on the show ahead of time. And that's when he told me that he started out in investing and you bought a duplex. So give us the elevator pitch style of how you got to where you're at right now.
Well, I don't know if I really had a choice. I was really, really fortunate. Unlike a lot of people, like my grandpa invested in real estate early on. So he was an HVAC contractor. He'd have a crew. They'd be out of a job. He'd find a house. They'd move into houses and then remodel them. So he moved my grandma around for some of those houses. And then my dad, he was a chiropractor, and he just started buying duplexes, threeplexes, fourplexes. And he'd buy one, and then he'd work really hard to pay it down or pay it off. Then he'd buy another one and work really hard. And so, I grew up as a kid, fixing up duplexes. We turned a fourplex into a sixplex. And, so I kind of learned some of the labor. I'm horrible at remodeling, by the way, but I know how to do it, which served me very much as time went on, because I'm like, you can't spoof me. I know exactly what to do with this. I know it's a pain, but so that really helped me. And so I grew up, learning elements of cash flow and learning elements of, financial independence and learning those types of things at the kitchen table. So that was a blessing. I didn't realize until just recently how big of a blessing it was. So then the first thing I did was decided to buy a duplex.
That is really, I think you did get a big leg up. When you are around that, your mindset automatically goes to, this is something that's very doable. And I think it's really interesting too, that we just had someone on the show with bigger pockets. We're bigger pockets. We contribute to that with our own blog, and we do stuff with that. But it was Craig Curlip, and he did the house hacking strategy, but you're like going old school house hacking. So your grandfather was doing this a long time ago.
Before it was popular.
But before it was cool. He was
the original HGTV guy.
That's right. The original house
Before
hacker.
HGTV was even around.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So tell me a little bit about, so how did this, what I was going to say is the mindset is really important, but it's not too late to get it. No matter where you're at in your game, no matter what your age, all you need to do is understand the theory behind it and then get the education and move forward. So when you went to fix and flipping, how long did it take from being a realtor, having that first duplex, to being a fix and flipper to dohardmoney.com?
Well, quite a while is the real answer. The honest answer is quite some time. Honestly, I was scared. So I bought duplexes, I bought fourplexes. I was being an agent. My wife would show people properties, and I was the lender side of that. I was an agent as well and a lender. So I was calling tenants saying, do you want to buy a property for less than you're paying rent? And then I'd get them pre-qualified. My wife would show them the properties, Hillary. So we did that. And in the same time, we were saving every penny so we could buy another duplex. That first duplex we moved into, I turned the duplex into a threeplex. So we were house hacking 20 years ago as well. And then, we kept buying stuff. And then, I wanted to get into the fix and flip game. But the interesting thing is we had sold hundreds of properties. We've been buyers agents and sellers agents, but I was still scared to death to be a fix and flipper. I didn't know how to do it, even though I had a vast real estate background and I'd been buying plexes and renting them and learning a lot along the way, making mistakes and learning. But I was still too scared to do it. So I ended up going to a conference and bought a cassette tape from a guy, and it changed my life. I was kind of one of those where I'm like, I don't want to spend money on education. And I bought this thing for $1,000 or something, $1,500. It was a couple of cassette tapes. That's how old it was. And that thing literally changed my life. But even then I was too scared to flip myself. And so I went and found other people that wanted to flip properties. And I told them I would help acquire the property and they'd have to sell with me. And I'd make 2 commissions with one customer, and I wouldn't have to work nights and weekends because it was investor stuff. So I could have a better life balance. And so I started helping other people flip properties. And then one day my wife found a deal and she's like, hey, I found a new deal. I've got it under contract and I have the perfect investor for this. This is the smartest investor we've ever known. I'm thinking in my head, okay, who is it? Who is it? And he's like, and then she's like, and he's the most handsome investor we've ever had. I'm like, okay, we're narrowing this down. And then she keeps going and I'm like, wait a minute, are you talking about me? And she's like, yeah, we're gonna do this one. And I was scared to death. Like I remember it was on Lamar Street. I remember being there and having a pit in my stomach, like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen? Like we could go bankrupt. This could be horrible. And so that was my first one. So even with all the experience I had, that first deal, that first hurdle, I still remember the pain.
That's crazy too, because I think that that's what keeps most people out. And I do think that that's a preventative. Like if this guy who's so smart is worried about going bankrupt, then with me, without any of that experience, there's no way I can do it. But that's not necessarily true because you overcame that limiting belief, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's in phases, right? So I think one of the ways that you can overcome limiting beliefs is obviously just changing your mindset. But beyond that, it's getting some help, getting some education, getting a mentor, following a plan that you've seen that somebody else has been successful. That being said, the idea of investing is taking on risk. So the more risk you take on, the more reward you typically get. The less risk you're willing to take on, the less reward you're willing to get. So the real question is how can we take on risk but mitigate those big risk factors as much as possible? And that's one of the reasons why I really like real estate, because I am taking on risk if I acquire a property, but I have a really good idea what the house across the street actually sold for. I know what it sold for, and I have a really good idea what the house next door is renting for. So I can put together comparables really well, so I'm mitigating that risk as much as possible. And then what I'm trying to do, I can use leverage and I can use other things to try and maximize my gains without taking on huge amounts of risk. And so that's the game, is how can I mitigate risks but still get the returns? But you have to be a little bit uncomfortable when you're doing something for the first time. You're going to feel a little uncomfortable. And then it got to the point where I could buy a house. I had more houses than I had pairs of underwear. And then it became really easy because you got used to it.
Yeah. And so you were able to take all this knowledge, though, and you've put it into a find, fund, and fix system, right?
Find, fund, flip. Yeah. Find,
fund,
flip.
Fund,
F3.
flip.
Yeah. Find, fund, flip. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a tongue twister. And you've got like 45 videos, right? Where you walk people through this entire system so that they can basically ramp up on what you know, correct?
Yeah. I mean, what happened is, we originally started just lending money, and we had a unique approach. There was a guy named Dan that funded my first deal, and he gave me the purchase and the rehab money, which is unheard of. He gave us both of those. So we had some closing costs. So we virtually had nothing into the deal. And that guy changed my life. And so I've been on a mission to help other people do the same thing. So, because money typically is one of the limiting factors for people. So I'm like, well, what if I gave you the money for the purchase and the rehab? What's your excuse now? And then it's like, well, I really don't have an excuse at that point. So we did that for people. But then what happened is we were lending money, and that was going really well. But we had the same thing happening. People would call us and they would say, hey, will you lend money to me? I don't have the best of credit, and I've had some bad job history. And we'd say, as long as the deal's good enough, as long as that deal is 70% of the after repaired value, sure, we'll lend you the money. But then we never hear from them again. They never call us back. And we spent a lot of time talking to people that got excited but never took any action. So we started sitting down and did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, threats, opportunities. And we said, you know what? The biggest problem we have is we have a lot of people that are excited, but they don't take the action. Why aren't they taking action? Because they need some help finding those great deals. So we developed the Find Fund Flip system, where we have 4 different softwares. We have finding mechanisms. You can send postcards and do skip trace and SMS broadcast. We have advanced deal analysis that can do that. We have construction costs all built in based upon the areas and zip codes. And then we can walk you through the whole thing. So we're saying, hey, if you come and get involved with us, what we're going to do is we're going to give you the platform to go be successful with some knowledge and some help, some tools, some resources and software, and we're going to give you the financing. So you become a member of ours, and then we actually provide the capital as well as the other resources to be successful, which has been amazing to watch people do their first deal. We help people scale real estate companies. We help people do their first one. I get really excited seeing people do their first deal. We had a gal, Victoria, that was 18 years old that made like $32,000 on her first deal, which was like so exciting to see. More money than she would have made on her job, so it was awesome.
Boy, that is awesome to be able to change people's lives like that. And to be able, I'm always a big fan of renovating properties, because if you take a property and it's leaching, let's say lead into the ground, and it's just sitting there and it's not becoming any better, or it's an old property and no one's doing anything to fix it, it's going to be an environmental, I feel, hazard. So the more real estate investors that get into the market, I feel it's much more better for the planet. Not only that, but real estate investors tend to, they work from home, so they're utilizing one house, or they're flipping into an office building. A lot of them will flip their own office building and then work out of that. And I just think that that's incredible. We have a business model where everyone is remote here at Leafy Legal. And I have been an expert for 10 years in growing remote-only teams, because I feel like with the money that you save with that, you can take everybody out on a cruise. And that's a lot more, better than wasting it on, I don't know, air conditioners. And I always bring up the air conditioners because I live in Texas. So that's like a massive expense. So I'm like a huge fan of anyone who can help anyone get into this industry.
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. We talk about the trickle-down effect when we talk about economics. I met my wife in micro macroeconomics, a combined course. But the idea is like when somebody flips a property and takes on that risk, it helps so many people. Somebody's writing an insurance policy, an agent's probably making some money. You've got the local contractors. You've got the national providers that are providing the carpet and that type of stuff. So even from an economics approach of taking and renovating a property, tax values goes up, which helps the tax market. So investors make the world go round, is really what happens. And that house where kids are smoking pot or doing stupid things, because it's across from the school and nobody lives there and there's a door kicked in the back, putting a great family in there that's going to take care of it, helps the overall market. Like there's so much good that happens when people take on the risk. Investors, I think, sometimes get downplayed, and they are heroes. Like they are making the world go round and changing the economics and providing jobs in more ways than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're providing skilled jobs, and they're turning around the economy, and that, and just any small business owner, they're the backbone of anything that thrives in any town, anywhere. And it's just so much better when you can put things into it. Like I really just agree with that. So I want to go back to this 18-year-old who was able to do this. So even somebody, regardless of age, can get your program, go through it, and then use the software that you guys provide and the system that you provide, and then you help them find the right funding to be able to do their first flip. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, I want to make one correction. I don't think anyone can. I think anyone could, but I don't think anyone can. I mean, the bottom line is, wimpy people that aren't going to do what it takes to get through it or go push through the hard times, they're just not going to make it. So if you're looking for, a lottery winner or a slot slot machine where you just pull a magic button and money starts dropping out. That's just not the case. There's no such thing as a get rich quick type idea. There is money to be made. You can make a lot of money flipping properties, but we also help people with rentals and buying long term and, establishing cash flows and all different types of stuff like that. But the big thing is like, you've got to have the tenacity. If you're just looking for the next big thing that's going to just put a whole bunch of money in your bank account overnight, it's not for you. But I would also say no investing type is for you. You've got to change the mentality and say, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to put in the time. It takes hours. It takes a lot of time, lots of making offers. You got to make a ton of offers. You got to find the right deals. Like, it just doesn't fall in your lap. So I think anyone could, if they're willing to put in the time and the dedication and not give up when times get hard, because they will get hard. That's part of real estate is all about problem solving. If you're to be a good real estate investor, you're a good problem solver. And that's really what it takes.
I love that you said that, because coming from a background with digital marketers, I've worked with some of the world's biggest digital marketers. I've also scaled companies. One company, the CEO and he actually hired me at that time to help scale the company. We started out with like 3 to 10 people, and with 18 months, I scaled it to 221 people in 21 countries around the world. That company is no longer in business because they did not follow the protocol. They didn't follow compliance. They got into some trouble well after he and I left, not when we were there, but we would come into that, especially digital marketing and online businesses, because a lot of people in real estate also have done that: affiliate marketing, network marketing, Bitcoin, you name it, and they get lured to an event, even in real estate. I mean, look at the real estates with that, Whitney Enterprises, right? That is the largest consumer in the UK. They had to pay everybody back $11,000. It's the largest payback from an event company in UK history, and it was real estate. So you go there and you see people with these huge oversized checks, on a stage. You're like, that's going to be me. But there's always this tiny, and sometimes they don't even have it, even though they should. Results are not typical, right? And I think it's important to say that even though you can, will you? Yeah. You have to get up every morning. You got to put on your makeup, or if you're a guy, so whatever. You may or may not put on makeup, and get your cup of coffee or whatever, and you have to go to work. You have to maintain a schedule. You have to roll with the punches, and it isn't going to be an overnight get rich quick. And I think now that so many people are talking about recession, even though I don't think it's going to be anything like 2008, because we have so many stopgap measures in place now. The fact is, they need to be thinking about cash flow. If you can think of something that'll give you a positive cash flow of $120, $200 a month, well, think about that. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't have to be $1,000 an hour. Start learning about other things, because you can do that, and you can do that deal a bunch of times over, and then before you know it, you're able to to have a really good income that is an income that keeps on coming in. And with fix and flips, it's the same thing. Once you get that in, just don't go off and spend it. Yeah. If you're the type of person with that one-time deal is not going to last very long. You buy a car and then that's it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, the cash you generate from flipping properties should be a mechanism to help you build cash flow. And I think you said it right. Like, cash flow is king. Cash isn't king, because cash sitting there actually gets lower in value. It eats away with inflation and those types of things. So cash flow is king. So how can we take capital and turn it into cash flow? And most people that we work with or wanting to get in to try and get a side hustle, second income, those things, have a day job. So it's beyond that. It's how can I not just go and do my regular job, but how can I do this on top of my regular job rather than watching The Simpsons? And that takes some discipline and late nights and hard work and Saturday mornings and some sacrifices. And so the question just is am I willing to sacrifice a little bit now to get the future that I want? The snowball going down the hill rolls really small to begin with, but then if you keep after it for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, then it really starts getting exciting because the compound effect starts to build on the investments. And that's when you can start having a lot more freedom than you would have had if you wouldn't have gone down the road.
Yeah, if you never would have started. There was this great meme, because we're a meme society now, and it had everyone talks about going back in the past and doing this one tiny thing that completely changes the future. You step on a stick and donuts rain from the sky, 200 years later. But no one ever talks about the tiny little things that you can do right now that are impacting your future.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so the tiny little thing you could do right now is listening to, you're listening to this podcast. You're putting a seed of something in here. You think, maybe I'll go check out this income hacker guy and I'm going to go to his place or read one of his books. Or you're going to be at the Money Show, right? In Las Vegas?
I've been in it.
It before.
Yeah, I don't think we're scheduled for this year, but yeah, we've been there several times.
Okay. But you also are on a radio show, right? The Voice of Utah?
Yep. I've been on lots of radio shows, lots of TV. I've done a lot of stuff.
You have done a ton of stuff. Well, what I'm saying is you can listen to something else. You can expand your horizons and just start a little bit. And investing in education, even if it's just listening to something or buying the videos or whatever, it can really be helpful. What do you think from what you've seen? Okay, so we already talked about there were so many people who got so jazzed up and then nothing ever happened with that. They never came back to you. Once you implemented your system in place, though, so you had the system to help them, what do you think? Is it 100%, or why do you think people stopping through the system? And what bit of advice could you give somebody once they make the idea, okay, I'm going to invest in myself and I'm going to do this, or maybe something else?
Yeah, great question. It always surprises me how many people make the investment, but then don't finish the time investment required. So not everyone goes through and puts the time in to go through and get the training, the certification, those types of things that are necessary. So that's obviously frustrating. We're always saying, how can we get more people to get through that? And I don't have the exact stats on that, but no, not everyone does for sure. And then from there, once you actually have the knowledge and know how to use the systems, the tools, and the softwares, then you actually have to put it in action. So you got to go do the hard work of that. And it is hard work. There's no question. The hardest work in getting started isn't pulling out your credit card. The hardest work is actually what happens after you get educated and get the knowledge and tools and you go put it into practice. And that's really where the rubber hits the road. But yes, we find that people are significantly more profitable when they go through our system than the overall marketplace. We find that they have it happen faster. We find they have it with more ease. They have to make fewer offers than you would have to. And those are stats that we just try and get an idea for general marketplace. But yeah, it's extremely successful when somebody actually follows through with the steps. And we have a lot of people that do it. I don't want to downplay that. But it takes a lot of tenacity to go through and learn things. Then it takes a lot of tenacity to put that in place. And that's what I think is the difference between the people that are really successful and the ones that aren't, are the ones that make a firm commitment and say, I am going to do it. There's a great poem my boys memorize, stick to your task till it sticks to you. And the whole idea is like, if you're wishy-washy in your commitment, your results are going to be wishy-washy. And that's what I see quite frequently is like, make a commitment to which, I don't care what path, if you whatever you're going to do to establish that cash flow that you're looking for, make a commitment to that and then work tirelessly towards that until you find the success that you want. And you might have to take left-hand turns or right-hand turns. You may have to go to a different destination or tact like you do in sailing, where it's like, hey, I want to get there, but I got to go this way. I got to go the opposite direction for part of the time, but I'm still moving towards it and then go the other direction. Those are things that you've got to do, but making the commitment to that and not giving up on yourselves is the biggest thing. And that goes for me too. Like it goes it doesn't matter. I don't necessarily want to call it levels, but no matter where you're at in your life, you are always having to recommit to the next destination. As you're climbing the hill, you're climbing the mountain, there's another mountain right behind it you can't see yet. And that gets really exciting. And when you get to the top, you take a minute and celebrate and be like, wait a minute, there's another mountain over there. That looks really cool. Let's go climb that one too. And then you start to climb on that. And then it's like, oh man, we're never going to make it. All these problems, it's challenges and opportunities. And then you make it to the top and you say, wow, look, that was the one I used to be on. This is where I'm at now. Oh, wait, there's another one over there. What if we climb that mountain? And so it's a continuous journey. And I think becoming the person that's necessary to have the success is really the key.
I absolutely agree with you. In fact, this is a theme that's come up more and more in my own life. In fact, I have a meeting with a podcast guest that we had on for financial planning. And I told him I'm going to be scared to do it because I've put everything into what I'm doing right now. I know I can do better. I'm a little worried about being judged, telling someone this is what I've spent my money on. I mean, are you going to judge my Sephora habit? Probably. But please don't make me feel too bad about it, or whatever, and so that's a scary thing. And it doesn't matter where you are in your life. You always have to just keep on moving forward. I remember, this is a weird story, but I was homeless during my college years, and I lived in a shelter, and I was there with a friend. And I remember laying on the ground, and I was so bummed out. And this is the dumbest reason to be bummed out. It was Christmas time, and it was hot, because it's Florida, and it was Covenant House in Florida. And I'm laying in this, they have this one little area and it's still there. And it's like a garth kind of grass area. And you could get, and it was wonderful that people cared enough. They donated a duffel bag and they put like a toothpaste and toothbrush and socks, underwear and some other things that you would need in a little thing of like perfume for the girls and whatever. But some of the things were different. And I really had wanted the perfume, right? And it was so stupid. I got one without the perfume. And I went outside and I knew and I felt very guilty, but I cried a little bit. It's the only thing I really wanted. And my friend came out and she said, I got the perfume. I didn't want that. I wanted it was a lip gloss kit. And then I cried even more because now somebody's being sweet to me. So I said, but what do I really need? I don't actually need this. I just wanted, I actually felt guilty at that point for being selfish when no one had to donate anything to me, right? Yeah. I mean, that's really stupid. Even then, at that point, even I knew I was being ridiculous, right? And I said, what do I really need? I need my contact solution for my contacts. I need a toothbrush. I need to brush my teeth. I need sunscreen because I'll burn because I'm so fair-skinned. I need some sunglasses. And I had this list of maybe 10 things and my best friend. And if I have that, I'll be okay. And at that point, that is what I needed. And then through life, that list has gotten a lot different and a lot bigger, but I've always had to move forward and change that list from just what I need to what I want and how I have to move forward. And so you have to push yourself for it. And sometimes it can be very scary. We talk to people all the time, that are real estate investors wanting to change their, either their structure, they haven't thought about something. Do I need this now? And one of the guiding things, the most successful people will constantly be looking for bigger problems. The problem, if somebody to ask you, any person, what were you totally worried about last year at this point? 99% of people would just struggle so hard with that. And you say, see, next year you're not going to remember this, so move forward. So I completely, absolutely agree with you on that.
And I think, the absence of problems is death, but you may even have a bigger problem than for some of us, I guess. But it's also interesting for me, this idea of it's interesting where you came from and where you're at now. That's amazing because I think if you look at the perspective of where you're at, homeless or in a center, and then now you're hosting an amazing podcast like that, the transformation's amazing. The reason I say that for any listener, the transformation from where you're currently at, I don't care where you're at, to where you want to be is huge as well. And it can seem daunting because it's so big to make that transformation, but take one step in the journey. And I have a soft spot in my heart. I hadn't thought about this. We help out a crisis center every year for Christmas, and we've been doing it for a long time. We take on kids. It's difficult circumstances, single moms, that stuff. And I'd never thought that, somebody from there would, be the host of a podcast show or, something like that. And I shouldn't say I hadn't put that in full perspective. You know what I mean? 20 years from now, somebody that we maybe helped, we don't know their names or anything, could be the President of the United States or something huge. And not just that, they could just be having a great life and taking care of their family and those things. It's amazing. I don't think that anybody that donated their perfume or whatever the case is knew the impact they could have on somebody.
No, but they have a big impact, I'm going to tell you. And, tell people this when I was a recruiter, because I worked in recruiting and mostly talent management and acquisition, especially with people who no longer wanted to work in a corporate workforce. There is an incredible amount of top talent right now that either survived an accident they never thought they would survive, and they can no longer sit in a car for 2 hours for a commute. They just can't. But yet, they have an incredible degree. They have all this experience. They're like, you'd be so lucky to get them, but they got to be at home. Or maybe someone became ill and they're a caretaker. Or maybe they got their degree, got married, and have children, and their just priorities completely changed. And they're like, golly, it's just more important I'm home right now. But yet you've got, somebody amazing, some guy who's like, I'm going to stay home with my kids. My wife's going to work. I'm an incredible graphic designer, but this is my focus. But I still can give you 10 hours a day, and it's going to be worth more than 40 hours of somebody else.
Yeah.
And one thing I notice is that it's not just when you work with remote people, it's also when you have people in the office of the hiring, C-level executives. I've worked for some very large companies, and I said, always be careful, because you never know the person you let go today is a person you might be coming to for a job later. You have no idea. And I never told my story before. For many years, I would never say that. My family went through a crisis when I was young. But if you looked at it today, you'd think I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. You'd have no idea that during the one time I really needed them, they crapped out, and I ended up being a pregnant, homeless teenager who,
Wow.
people wouldn't even, back then, there were places that wouldn't even wait on me because of the judgment with that,
Wow.
And you'd never have an idea. So I never spoke about it for a long time. Only recently, really in this podcast, am I talking about it, because there's all this, shame and embarrassment, also too for my family, but they're all over it now. They're super cool. I really have the best family on this planet.
Yeah.
But you never know. And when you meet people, it's amazing. I really believe in the American dream. I believe that anybody can climb out of it, because I met people along the way from so many different backgrounds. I knew people who were, people you would pretend you did not see if you walked them by the street, that had such great hearts that helped me. And I hope I was able to help them with whatever gifts I could give them, because I did have a very good education, and then I got all this happened, but I had enough to not get into drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you'd be amazed at the amazing people that, because of their mindset, because they were never taught about money, go from working a job to being homeless very quickly, and how quick it can happen. And they can make it back again. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I'll never get out of it, the world hasn't changed so much that you cannot change your entire life fairly quickly. You just have to make one step forward every day. Remember who you are, and remember God loves you. And he didn't want for this to happen, but you're learning something, and just to keep on moving forward.
Yeah, frankly, I appreciate you sharing these things with me, because they're touching. And I just think it's more about direction over distance. I think a lot of people get caught up on, I'm not as far along as I want to, no matter where your circumstances are. But I think it's more about making sure you're in the right direction and you're moving, than it is about how much distance you've covered so far. If you're pointing in the right direction, you're making steps, the distance will come. It may not come today or tomorrow. It may be next year or in 2 years, but it's more about direction than it is about distance.
I agree too. And keeping your own personal integrity. It's okay just to say no sometimes, because that's not who you are. And then it's okay to take opportunities when they come, like opportunities like this. Well, it's getting to the end of the show, and I hate that. I feel like I talk too much when Ryan Wright of DoHardMoney.com has given us so much information. And Ryan has been on Fox. Let's see, I'm looking at all the places you've been. You've been a featured speaker for Bank of America, Citi Mortgage, Wells Fargo, Inside Mortgage Finance. He's been a speaker at The Money Show in Vegas, numerous publications, radio, but you can find him, DoHardMoney.com, and he has a free offer that he's going to talk to you about.
Yeah, absolutely. So for any of your listeners, we set up a special link just for them. I have a book called How to Get More Money You Can Never Handle, a Real Estate Investor's Guide to Funding Deals. It really goes over how to do these deals with little to no money down. And so for your listeners exclusively, if you go to dohardmoney.com/Leafy, /podcast / they can download a free copy. We sell it for $26 or $19. I can't remember. You can get a free e-copy there just for your listeners, Leafy-podcast for your guys' listeners. So you can download a free copy of that.
Thank you so much. Guys, that's great. Oh, it's like right in time for the holidays. So this is wonderful. Okay, well, thank you. And I just want to thank you so much for being here and for everything that you talked about. I'm going to have to look over everything that you're doing because I'm very interested in your fund flip system. I love that you've automated it and that you've brought in a tech aspect too to help people along with the lending part. I think that is like an end-to-end thing that I really am going to want to learn a lot about myself. And thank you again for being here. And Tammy, will you take it away?
Absolutely. So thank you again, Ryan. That was awesome. I will have the links that he just gave in our show notes so that you will be able to find a copy of his ebook, because I know I will be looking it up. I'm interested in the little money down situation as well. So thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you again, Jennifer, for hosting again a wonderful podcast. And if you'd like to find us on social media, please look us up at Leafy Legal. And we will have everything in the show notes, like I said, on leafylegalservices.com. And I hope that we see you next time. Thank you again for being here, and have a wonderful day.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Don't wait. Take action now. LeafyLegalServices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.